All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to a discussion of the Sundered Nation Trilogy on the auspicious occasion of the release of Book 2, Bold Ascension. And I have here with me none other than the author himself, Vaughn Roycroft. Hello, Vaughn. Welcome, and how are you?
I'm doing great today. Thanks, Philip. And I'm very excited about the release. And it's just, one of those things where you're all this build up, build up, build up, and then it finally happens. And you're like, kind of, whew, just
Yeah.
feels like a whirlwind getting ready to release a book. And I know you know that.
Oh yes, I'm familiar with the sensation, the whirlwind. Yes, it's exciting and
Yeah.
exhausting
Yeah.
and exhilarating and frightening and so many things that you wouldn't think could all go together in one headspace. But
Yeah.
yes, yeah. But congratulations, my friend.
Thank
This
you.
is wonderful, wonderful stuff. Wonderful that you are now releasing the second book. And it is, by the way, everybody, today, the day this video is being released, is release day for Bold Ascension. So it is available. It is fantastic. I haven't finished it, but I have started it, and I am loving what I'm reading so far. In fact, Vaughn, one of the things that I'm thinking now, I'm on the record already because we had a conversation. By the way, I'll put a link in the description to our previous discussion on the
Right.
Severing Sun, which is book 1 of the Sundered Nation Trilogy. We had a discussion on it already on this channel. I loved book 1. It is one of my favorite self-published fantasy books that I've read so far, and I've read quite a number now. So congratulations on that.
Thank you.
But that said, and I hope you don't take this ill, but I think that you have actually gotten better in Bold Ascension. Your writing has even gotten better from the Severing Sun. So people, if you enjoyed the Severing Sun, you're gonna love Bold Ascension. I am very
Wow.
confident in saying that.
Thank you.
Very confident. Do you agree? Do you feel like you've evolved as a writer?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
And I asked you the same question, and
Yeah.
because I had a sense that there's growth between the volumes of your book. Not that there's anything to say about it's not,
Right.
like you said, it's not downplaying what was already there. It's just you
Right.
sense something, and it's probably, I want to say it's as much confidence as anything,
Yeah.
just being confident on the page, and being knowing that you're more in control of
Mm.
what you're doing.
Yeah, I
um,
think too, by the way, everybody, no spoilers in this discussion at all. We are steering completely clear of spoilers. But yeah, a first book is, I think, a bit difficult in some ways. Yeah, I hear a lot of people talk about, like in a trilogy, second book syndrome and that sort of thing. I never felt like the second book was as much of a struggle as the first book, where you have to do so much world building, you have to do so much establishing of character, and that can take away from the pace if you're trying to get a faster pace, but you're trying so much to balance, I think, a lot of things. And by the time you get to book 2, you already have stuff you've built, right?
yeah,
And you can just get into the story. And I don't know, do you think
I
that's part of the
I
reason?
think that's true, and I think the thing that the thing and I think you probably did the same, is you have the presumption that they're with you, like readers are with you, so you don't feel the same pressure to make sure they understand every element you introduce perfectly and all that sort of thing. And even though my world is expanding a lot, I knew that they were with me, and since my characters move into a new world, we're all coming with them, so we're learning as they learn, which I think helps. But
Yeah.
yeah, I agree with you about worrying about pace and so forth with bringing people into the world with the first book. That's a very tricky thing, and I can't even count how many times I rewrote the opening chapters to the Severing Sun. I mean,
Yep.
I have no real guess how many times, but
Some of the most worked chapters over and over are the beginning
absolutely.
ones. Yeah, for sure. But I will still say though, even with that caveat that yes, there are certain things that about a first book that put it perhaps at a disadvantage in fantasy. I will say that I do think that, for example, this is not a spoiler, but you do introduce a new character, a character that is new to the series early in the book. And I had a sense of that character from bang, just from the beginning. I thought it was
Oh, that's
just
great.
so well done. And I thought, wow, Vaughn has gotten even better at this. You know,
Oh,
that
good.
character was jumping out of the page for me. It was so wonderful to see the characters that I knew already, but also very cool to see those characters from another character's perspective, if you know what I
Yeah,
mean.
yeah.
So yeah, very cool stuff.
Well, thank you.
Just
I that particular character that you're talking about is someone that I've known for many, many years. And so I was very intimate with writing him, and I just spoiled it. It's a him, but
that's okay. Yeah.
but yeah, I thought it would be an interesting way to start. And it's funny because I know you and I both kind of produce the traditional publishing world a little bit, and in shopping the books around and in having my agent read the series and so forth, there's a lot of I want to say, and don't take me wrong, editors and agents, if you happen to see this, but there's a lot of consternation about, well, you need to start with the people we know, and you
Uh-huh.
you know, like you can't just throw us into book 2 with this brand new strange character. And I just thought, you know, to heck with that. I really wanted to start that way, and I really wanted to see the perspective flip and
Yeah.
play with that a little bit.
Yeah. I like
And I thought it was a good way to introduce the world rapidly, the world of book 2.
very
Um,
efficient, actually. Very well done.
Good,
Yeah.
thank you. That's
Because
so.
it is an expanding story at this point. Like we there was a certain area that we got to know and very much concerning the tribes, if you will, of
Right.
the main characters. We got to know that area very well in the first book, and it was very clear that this world was going to be expanding for us in the second book by the end of the first book. That was very clear, and here we see it. You know, and so you are doing some new stuff. I think very efficiently with the introduction of that character. I know that I introduced a new character early in my second book, but not as an opening thing, as an opening chapter. So that's brave of you and well done. You know, that was yeah, a very smart move, I think, and it certainly worked for this reader. Yeah.
Good.
So
Perfect. That's exactly what I like to hear.
yeah, yeah, no, it's really great stuff. By the way, too, I want to do a little close up here of this beauty here. I loved the first cover, and it features one of my favorite characters. This is the Severing Sun, everybody. Just a gorgeous cover. And I was so privileged to do the cover reveal for both of these books on YouTube. Just great stuff. And, you know, there's even a cool quote on the back from some crazy dude named Dr. Fantasy. So, but oh my goodness, look at this beauty too. Oh man, just the colors. And I right away thought, oh, I know this character. So yeah, oh, just great stuff. I love the ships in the background and
He
everything
did
going
a
on.
lot of this is John Anthony DiGiovanni is my cover artist, and
Yeah.
just a wonderful artist and a very talented guy, and just a generous artist in the way that he goes
Wow.
about what he does. And I couldn't have found a better partner for creating the visual of this world. I mean, he has just captured it so brilliantly.
I agree.
I mean, he is such a grasp, and I've been fortunate enough that I get to see all his thumbnails that he does for ideas for us to discuss.
Oh,
And
cool.
I'm like, can you just do all of them? Like make them all beautiful paintings, because
Yeah.
even the thumbnails are so gorgeous, and it's like, wow, he really took the story itself to heart very clearly to me.
That's
Like,
fantastic. Yeah. Does he read the book
mhm,
before he does?
yeah,
Wow. Okay.
yeah. He reads the book, and I mean, and we discuss it, and then the thumbnails, and we discuss those, and man, just a brilliant and fun for me, as you can imagine, exercise to go through. And we're in the process of doing book 3 right now.
Oh,
So
really?
yeah.
Okay. Are you at liberty to tell us the title of book 3? Or
The
is that still a
title of
secret?
book 3,
Is that a secret
okay,
still?
this is one, and I'm going to tell you, we were talking about this, the kind of the atmosphere of consternation about the traditional publishing world. And
Yeah.
this was one that I was advised to rethink, but I am keeping it.
Okay.
It is titled Destiny's Doom. Destiny apostrophe S, Destiny's Doom.
Okay.
And
Whoa, that sounds ominous. Yeah.
anyone who reads even a fairly short portion of book 1 will
Yeah.
come across the word doom fairly quickly. It has to do with a prophecy that's central to the plot of all 3 books. So
Right. Yeah. Well, doom used to mean a lot more than it does now.
yeah,
So you're obviously leaning on some of the older connotations of the word doom, as I do in my writing. I have the
yeah.
doom ring in my first book, and
We have a lot of there's so many, like, I guess they're peripheral similarities. Not just that our journeys were similar, but I sense so many things that are very similar about our work.
oh
And
yeah.
but they're tonally, I just feel like yours is so I don't know, it's just so hope filled. And I always, when I was reading yours, I was like, why didn't I have this much like hope infusion in mine? And but
Oh.
I hope in the end it comes away. I hope it comes with hope at the, I
Yeah.
hope I trail with hope. But yeah, by the way, I'm so glad to see you in person, because I just want to one more time congratulate you on the triumph that is the Adan trilogy. I mean, you talk about sticking the landing. Wow, it's just, anybody who hasn't read the Adan trilogy yet, and back at you on favorite self-published so far.
Hmm.
Uh, for a complete trilogy, it is clearly and head and shoulders my favorite self-published work, as a complete story. No, hands down, my favorite.
Wow. Well, thank you, Vaughn. That's very kind. Yeah, I'm so happy to have readers like you out there, and I think that we have so many interesting similarities. Let's talk about them, and inspirations, and because I do want to give the viewers a sense of the world that you have built here, what your influences are, what you've based it on. We talked about that in the early discussion, but I think it's kind of cool, and because the world is expanding too. So there's more to say, I think, at this point. But first, some of our similarities. So you and I both, as you pointed out, spent many years writing our stories, and we both tried to go the traditional route. Both of us got as far as having wonderful agents in our corner, and both of us realized at a certain point that the traditional publishing is right now at a place where the kind of storytelling that you and I are trying to do is not what most of them are looking for. So,
That's a nice way of putting it.
it's a nice way of putting it. Yeah, and I have made my peace with that, and I sense that you have as well.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
I'm excited in some ways too about where traditional publishing is going with fantasy. There's a lot of great stuff out there. I'm excited by the increasing diversity we're seeing in the
Yeah,
genre, which can only make the genre richer. So
right.
I'm okay. I'm good.
Me
Thank
too.
goodness we live in an era when you can self-publish, and if you work hard at it, you produce a great story. You work with enough people. You work with great cover artists. You work with great editors. You work with uh, all kinds of folks to market the thing. So yeah, it's viable, and it's
Yeah,
even fun because you get to be part of a community. So
right.
you and I both have been on similar journeys in this respect.
Yeah. And I wouldn't have these covers if I had gone traditional. And I don't know what I would have gotten, to be fair.
You would
I
have
mean,
had almost no say in it, probably.
yeah, yeah. So and right now, very not that I dislike them, but very graphic covers are in vogue in the traditional world.
Ah,
And some of those are just so strikingly. Robin Hobb comes to mind, the newest covers of of the realm of the Elderlings.
okay.
They're very graphic. I mean, just as main focused on the title, but
Yeah.
gorgeous. But I wanted an old-fashioned painting
So you're
look.
talking about the British
Yeah, yeah,
covers. Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
And I just wanted to kind of harken back to that old. A painting of a scene was something that since I've been dreaming of having books. That was the look I wanted, and so I pursued that, and now I was able to select it, choose the artist, and do the wonderful work with John that I was just talking about. So
Well, that is one of the big pluses, in my opinion, too, about self-publishing. It is the creative freedom that you
yeah,
have and the logistical freedom, because you can say, if you're a nutcase like me, I'm going to publish 3 books in 1 year.
yeah.
Yeah.
Congrats on
Uh,
that too. I had a similar hope, and it didn't work out that way for me. But I still intended to get book 3 out in fairly short order. And so there are a lot of people out there, and I hear it all the time. People who won't even start a book 1 until they know the series is complete.
yeah.
So,
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I have no complaints about the way things are going for me, but I will say I didn't see, upon release of book 3, this sudden flood of purchases or anything like that. So,
I have a feeling that'll really build, though, because as people finish, the word of mouth on it can only build. I mean, like I said, you really stuck the ending, and it's so moving. And I think emotional involvement is one of those things that you talk about when you talk about the books you love, and you nailed that aspect of it. I
yeah.
just was at a writing conference for a week, and everybody who I talk to, we all, writers, we get together and we say, "What have you been reading? What do you love?" And I was able to talk about your trilogy several times, and with my
Wow.
fellow fantasy writers at Writer Unboxed, and including my former agent, who asked me that question, and I said, "Oh, you got to look this guy up, because he's always, what's hot? What are you reading?
Wow.
So, and he specializes in fantasy, so he wants to know what I love, and I told him.
I know who your agent is. He's actually quite well known. Yeah, very successful agent. But yeah.
He's known as a teacher, and he was at our conference in that capacity, and I was so fortunate in the fact that he wanted to develop this trilogy with me before we even took it to marketplace. So we were actually together.
That's an ideal agent. That's what you want. Yeah.
Yeah, we were actually together for a couple of years before we ever took it to market.
Yep.
So
Yep. Yep.
yeah,
That was how it was for me too. Yeah.
we're
Yeah. That's
fortunate. I know.
And he never made a penny off of you.
No, right? Yeah,
Yeah. But
so,
but to this day, I still have a very good relationship with my agent as well.
me too.
So yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah,
So yeah, you work with great people. That's kind of what I wanted to get at. Is you had your cover artists, which has been such a pleasure for you. And I must say there's some of the most stunning covers out there.
thank you.
Just fantastic. Much better than you would have gotten if you had been traditionally published.
I gotta
I'm
say so. Yeah.
99.9% sure of that assertion. Yeah, that's great. And then do you also have an editor that
Yes.
besides the
I have.
agent that you just mentioned, do you also work?
Well, he was instrumental, but prior to that, my developmental editor, who I mentioned the last time we talked, Therese Walsh,
Yeah.
I mean, she just crawled into the story and found its beating heart, and really helped me to find my way to conveying those things. And besides that, just telling me, big picture, like you know, this is working, or you need to work on this. And there's just so many aspects of the story that she gave cohesion to. And that's what developmental editors really do well, when they're good. And Therese is very good. And I know you have a very good developmental editor as well.
Oh, I do. I'm very happy with
I hate to bring up the nemesis, but
he crops up all the time. I don't know why. That's what he does, you know. He keeps, you know, creeping in all over the place. So but yeah, I also want to mention that Therese Walsh is the founder of Writer Unboxed.
that's right. Yeah.
That is tell us a little bit about that, because I feel like that is something that more authors would love to know about, and to have a community like that.
And everybody is welcome at Writer Unboxed, but I had the opportunity to speak a little bit as I actually introduced Therese Walsh on the opening day of the conference.
Wonderful.
I discovered Writer Unboxed, and it at its, you know, the main thing Writer Unboxed is a writing blog. 5 days a week, we have an essay up by a team of contributors and guests, and they're people from all aspects of the publishing industry. We're traditionally published. We're all genres. There are a couple of there's an agent and a couple of other pros. We have many editors, professional editors that are contributing to the essays. And the thing I said was, when I discovered Writer Unboxed, it already exists, but it was fairly new. Already existed, but it was fairly new. And I sensed a welcoming and supportive group of folks, and I had been kind of looking for that elsewhere, you know, via the online. I kind of live in the middle of nowhere, so I didn't really have a community, and this was kind of in the early days of being a writer online. And I know there were days when writers just toiled alone, and maybe people who lived nearby a group of writers could have a critique group that met in person or something like that. That just wasn't available to me. So I started commenting on the essays on Writer Unboxed, and I just got this overwhelming feeling that these people wanted to hear what I had to say, and they were interested, and they wanted to help me. And you know, it was so powerful that I got more and more involved in Writer Unboxed until I became an assistant editor to Therese Walsh. Wow. And we have a semi-annual conference, which just ended last Friday. It's a week-long deep dive, and it's into the craft of writing. We kind of shy away from the business side of writing and just stick to how do we deepen our stories. And when you go to this conference, which is actually called an unconference, everybody brings their work in progress, and there are times when we just sit together and write for 20 minutes, and then we all talk about what we did, and some people read what they've written. And it's about 100 of us. It's kept fairly small, but it's so immersive and so powerful. By the end of it, you feel overwhelmed, but in such a good way. You know, you just feel like you can do anything. You can set the world on fire. So
wow.
Yeah.
So folks can follow that blog, can follow Writer.
Yeah. We do a daily mailing service, and you would just get a reminder email of what that post is for that day and so forth. And we also share it on Twitter daily. I'm actually the guy who shares the daily post on Twitter. As Writer Unboxed. You can follow Writer Unboxed on Twitter, and we're in the process of moving to Threads right now, or adding Threads to the and I know that there is an account at Instagram, but I don't think it's that active. Nobody ever really jumped on that. Like, we have a presence on Twitter just mainly because I'm there, but
right.
And you know, we're there every day, and we have a very active group of people who comment in it, and we try to make that it's a blog, but we try to make it a daily conversation,
Yeah.
more so than just what you would consider a regular blog. So
Wow.
everybody who contributes is very open to the comments, and I think you'd find if writers, if you're out there, come stop by when you feel up to it, or just throw even a short comment down, and quite often you'll hear back from the author of that essay, and I'm willing to bet you will feel the welcoming feeling that I described.
No, that's great. Yeah, I think that people who love to write also love to talk about writing and in communities together, and that can be such a wonderful interaction, really, and very enriching in terms of one's own craft. So I think that's a great kind of community to be part of. So great stuff. But let us get back to the Sundered Nation trilogy here. I do want to circle back to something that we alluded to earlier, which was we've had similar journeys in terms of our writing, but we also have very similar inspirations, and one of them being Mr. J.R.R. Tolkien. Up there is
Your top shelf.
yeah. I mean, I just did it alphabetically, but it worked out pretty well for.
Yeah.
There's another shelf above that, but that's also Tolkien. So so yeah.
Figures.
Yeah, he's up there as well, among others. But yeah, it's I think something we both have talked about, that reading Tolkien when we were quite young. And in your case, you had a wonderful teacher who passed that love on to you in the best way. But wanting to, as a kid, being so impacted by this reading journey, and then feeling like, yes, this is what I want to do. I want to be able to do this for people too. I think we both probably caught that bug in a similar way.
Very much so.
Yeah. And then I think from Tolkien, I certainly got my interest in Old English and Old Norse, and then the older cultures in general, that and older mythologies and things like that always, since I read Tolkien, have been so interesting to me, so fascinating for me. And I feel like you probably feel the same way.
Right.
In your case, though, in the Sundered Nation trilogy, I want you to talk a little bit about, because they're similar to some of my influences, but slight variations in a way, because we're talking about different older Germanic cultures. And the one that you're drawing from is the one branch of, if we're talking linguistics, the Eastern Germanic branch of the Germanic languages is extinct. There are no existing languages, but there were once upon a time the Goths, right? So tell us about the historical inspirations, starting with perhaps the Goths, but then also it would be great to hear about some of the newer characters and the inspirations behind their cultures as well.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, Old English is such a and Beowulf and all that are such a natural progression from Tolkien that, and mine happened to take a left turn to the Goths because of the teacher you mentioned. Excuse me. He speculated when we were discussing Lord of the Rings as I read it. I thought the writers of Rohan were the coolest dudes in the whole book, and I was asking him about them, and he just kind of musingly threw out that he thought their relationship to Gondor was similar in a tributary way to what the Goths became with the Roman Empire, and how they became, well, the Goths became federati, or foreign fighters for the Roman army, and they were revered warriors, and at times ended up fighting against the Romans. But I thought that was such an interesting,
even sacking Rome.
well, and famously being the first peoples to sack Rome. But I just thought it was fascinating that he was comparing the Goths to the writers of Rohan, I think he meant culturally and so forth, and the relationship between the two cultures. But then when you hear the Goths sacked Rome, but then they also fought for him, and I just thought that was so cool. And I'm like, how did that happen? And all those questions have been swirling in my mind for really decades, before I wrote Word One in around 2004. But yeah, my very first venture into the world of storytelling on the page was with Gothic characters, and the Goth, and like you said, that branch of the languages is dead. Luckily, we have Wolthius, who translated the Bible. He was a Goth who translated the Bible. It was an Arian Bible, so it was prior to the Roman Catholic version. But
right. In other words, regarded as heresy later on.
Exactly right. So then that Bible disappeared because it's heresy, but it survived, and the language is known to us in its basic form. And it's surprising how similar to English it is. It's very, I think it's sometimes in some ways, and I don't know that much about old English, but it almost sounds more similar to English than Old English does. I don't know if you agree with that, but just to my ear, just once in a while, I just think, wow, this is really similar to English, to modern English. But it's one of those things that I am no linguist, and I did not learn the language or anything, but I have several books on it, and I have a couple of Gothic dictionaries, and I tried to root my names and my place names and a lot of the it just was a big tool for me in my world building. But then, as you alluded to, of course, the Goths came into more and more contact with the classical world, as it were. Yes. And when they did that, that happened in the Black Sea region.
Yeah.
So Goths were migrating into the Black Sea region, and in a lot of ways, one of the reasons they were pushed that way was the push of the Huns.
Yes. Yeah, they were not just invading; they were fleeing. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
importantly as well, though, I want to mention, because this is related to your books, the Goths split into two. There
exactly.
were the Ostrogoths, the Eastern Goths, and the Visigoths, the Western Goths.
Yes.
And they went their various ways, and the Visigoths ending up all the way in Spain, the Ostrogoths ending up all the way in what is now the Crimea. So all over the place, and lots of interactions with the Roman Empire in the process.
And in the title to the trilogy, The Sundered Nation, one of my speculations over time was, how did they split into two nations when they had a set of kings, and then they ended up splitting and having completely different leadership, and I read something somewhere, and I can't think of the scholar's name. There's a scholar at Oxford who's written extensively about the Goths. Gosh, I cannot believe I've forgotten his name right at this moment. Anyway, he wrote about the ruling clans being sort of at odds, and I have totally taken that and run with it. But I completely invented the two ruling clans that I have featured in the books. They're rooted in history only in the aspect of that two clans ended up at odds and ruling the Sundered Nation, the two nations. But
you just took the general idea then.
Yeah. And one of the things I wanted was for one of the ruling clans to get more and more involved with the classic world. And in the beginning, the Goths did a lot of raiding in the Black Sea region, especially along the cities on the coast. And then later on became, I guess, just more immersed in the culture of the region that that was that part of, at that time, Rome, the Roman Empire, but mostly was inhabited by Greek peoples and others.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to have this multicultural area, primarily of Greeks who were part of the Roman Empire, who
Right.
then have these encounters with my goth characters, who are known in my book as the Guattari.
Guattari, yeah, and those characters based on the more Greek / Roman world are more quote unquote civilized. They're more cosmopolitan and more urban than the barbarians who are at the door, so to speak. The scholar isn't Peter Heather, is it? The one you
Yes, Peter Heather. Thank you. Oh,
yeah.
Good. Fast search there. Thank you. Yeah.
Yep.
I've read a number of books by Peter Heather, and I recommend them. He has one. He rewrote the Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire, which is kind of his masterwork. That was I had read a couple when that book came out, and I was already working on the series by then, and I was blown away by that book. But it's pretty scholarly. I mean, it's not. It's a story, but it's more like a textbook than it is a storybook, if you know what I mean. So.
Oh, of course, yeah, but there are lots of stories in history, that's for sure.
Yeah. So
marvelous. So I think you've given a wonderful sense of the cultural influences in the Sundered Nation Trilogy, with the understanding that book one, The Severing Sun, really focuses more on the division within the Guattari, and which is inspired very loosely, I guess, on the split between the Ostrogoths and Visigoths.
yes.
But yeah, the particulars are not the same at all.
No.
Yeah.
No. The names are similar. There was I think it's Uthius clan, which I've just made into Wolthius, which kind of jumped to the Gothic term for wolf. And then there's also the Amalis clan, which I pretty much I didn't change the spelling of that or anything, but and the thing I did change is I'm told their sigil was a bear, and
you made it a lion.
I changed it to a lion, and I don't know why, I just wanted a lion really badly. And then after I got going and I had this Wolf Clan and Lion Clan, then here comes George R.R. Martin with Song of Fire.
Oh, the Lannisters and the Starks. Yeah.
I'm like, oh no. But then I was too far in to change it, so I just whatever. And I really have never heard anybody complain or say that. Did you?
I don't think anybody's going to say that you're pilfering from A Song of Ice and Fire. And the historical period is quite different. One of the things that I think both of us are probably attracted to in terms of our inspirations and influences are more, quote unquote, these are air quotes, everyone, primitive cultures that are contacting more sophisticated, urban, civilized cultures and are changing in the process. That this is a point of cultural evolution that we can see historically many times. And you can see it among the Vikings or among the Anglo-Saxons as they get Christianized and settle down and that sort of thing, as they encounter various groups that they are initially antagonistic toward, but then end up borrowing a lot from. And this age of migration that the Goths are really in many ways at the forefront of. You alluded to the fact that they were reacting to other migrations, the Huns coming along and pushing things. But it is fascinating, I think, for some reason.
It is.
You and I are both,
a big part of what grabbed me.
Yeah, is the transition, the cultural transition. I write about it in my trilogy as well.
Absolutely, you really feature that strongly in a very similar. That's one of the similarities that I first. There were a lot, but that was one that with some of your characters and some of your groups just really strongly remind me of what I was thinking and working with. So yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. What do you suppose it is that is so fascinating about a period like that of transition from often not just rural to more urban or more barbaric to more sophisticated, but sometimes it includes a whole transition in terms of religion, often going from a polytheistic to a monotheistic religion. So you see a lot of shifts happening in this process.
Right.
That are, just I don't know why this fascinates us so, but what do you suppose it is about it that makes good storytelling?
I think everybody can identify with kind of feeling. I mean, from my perspective, writing from the perspective of the Goss, of the Guittari, everybody can kind of identify with feeling sort of less than, and then having this history that was so glorious and so forth, and you're very proud of it, and then to find yourself encountering another group, and even being able to point to things that they're doing and saying, you're no better, and then to be kind of looked down upon. I think that was a big part of what I was exploring, especially getting into this book.
Yeah.
Just having that, there's an element of, well, I'll show you, to like to the whole thing. And then also, even my prophecy, if I can talk about it a little bit in a non-spoiler way,
You can.
um, it has a lot to do with the fall of Rome,
Mm,
because I think there were so many groups that they wanted to be part of it, but they were never really accepted within it, and so I think the answer to that, or what came of it, was strife quite often.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I developed this idea of the prophecy of, I think every group, we can all, and even today, identify with the feeling that, well, we're on the downslope. I mean, things are not going well. Things are getting worse. And then, but there's got to be something glorious coming of all this. There's got to be something brighter that'll be birthed from all this gloom and doom we're living through right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think as I wrote it, I felt that it was very applicable to the times, to have that feeling, and to have this hope, and then to put your own people and your own culture at the center of it, and say, well, you're going to be part of this glorious rebirth of what happens next. So
Which is a
I hope that's
transformation.
not
It's a
too
transformation
spoilery.
of your older culture.
Yeah,
You're leaving something behind in order to take on something new.
yeah,
And I think I love your answer, by the way. Fantastic. But I also think too, it's just conducive to good writing because, as William Faulkner is famous for saying, and George Martin is famous for quoting, speaking of George R. R. Martin, there's nothing worth writing about but the human heart in conflict with itself, right? I think I
right.
more or less got that quote right.
Yeah, yeah. Absolutely. I think the inner conflicts of these people is, I didn't know I was going to do as much internal work as I did. I pictured, when I first started writing, I pictured very much an external and plot driven adventure story was what I thought I would go after. And as I got going, what really interested me was these human beings that I got to know, and why, their inner conflicts were more fascinating to me than the external stuff. And
Yeah.
I'm always gratified when people tell me that they enjoy the action sequences and so forth in my
Oh,
books.
there's some good ones. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you. But I hope that what's going on in Valdance and Alon's and all those people's heads, I mean, that's what really fascinates me. And I hope that utilizing the one gets you to the other, if you know what I mean.
Oh, most
Um,
certainly, I would say so. You have some great themes woven into your tale, and that's for me what makes a great story. And I love the interchange stuff. You have one of the best duels I've ever read in fiction, in The Severing Sun. And you have some awesome battles, just great stuff, epic stuff, everybody. So if you love that, I've compared your writing to John Gwyn's, and I consider that a great compliment. And he's I've got Gwyn's down there as well. So it's great.
Another guy who got better and better, in my
absolutely,
opinion.
absolutely.
I just, as I read on and on with him, I just kept thinking, wow, and it's the same sort of thing, that confidence and that mastery that you gain from being there, in the difficulty of introducing to the world and all those things. It's exactly what we were talking about.
Yep. That you can see that happening in Malice, the first book in The Faithful and the Fallen, where Gwyn is clearly painting this beautiful world for us, this amazing world for us to get immersed in. But that takes time, and that's a difficult thing to balance, I think.
Yeah, and it's challenging for readers. I've heard people struggle a little bit with Malice, and then I always tell them, keep going. I think it's worth it.
I never did, but I've heard that as well. And sometimes I guess just the sheer number of names or whatever.
Yeah, and locations and cultures and.
Yeah, and I've heard people say things about the names in my trilogy, like I just can't get past all these weird names, and they're actually they're based on I mean that's kind of staple for fantasy, isn't it? Weird names. Yeah. So. But I think it's part of the immersion as well. You need to know that if my protagonist's name is Bob, you're not going to feel like you're in another world.
Yeah.
You don't want to feel like you're in New Jersey with Bob leading the way. So you want to feel like you're in Jormungand or
Yeah. If you want to tie it to your cultures, I wanted to tie my names to my cultures very much so, and and somebody on our last discussion in the comments alluded to the fact that my culture names and so forth might be a little bit on the nose for somebody who really knows history. But my answer to that was I don't think all that many people are that familiar, so that I wanted them to strongly allude to, for example, my Greeks are Hellenes, and that's, it's very on the nose, but I didn't want there to be any question who these folks were, and so I don't see anything wrong with that myself. My Romans are Tiberians, the Tiber River. So yeah, it's there. Yeah, I guess they are on the nose is my answer. So
in that sense, would you accept the label historical fantasy for your writing, or
and if it makes anyone feel more comfortable or more likely to buy them, of course, yeah. No,
answer.
I don't mind. When I was just reading historical a series, and gosh, the name of the author escapes my mind, so I better not say anything, but I'm reading something that is labeled historical historical fiction, and it reads very much like fantasy to me, and there's magic in it, and there's the dreamers and all this stuff, and it's the Boudica series, and now
yeah, sure. Yeah, I hear the Gwyn brothers talk about.
I got the recommendation from the Gwyn brothers. So, and I'm three or four books into it. Manda Scott.
There you go.
Yeah, and it's very much like I would say as strongly in epic fantasy as my work.
So it's interesting because I was just listening to the Gwyns as they were talking to Dan Jones, whose book literally today, as we were recording this, I heard them earlier in the day. And Essex Dogs, is that the name of the book? The first book by?
I don't know that one offhand.
And then Wolves of Winter, I think, was the second book, something like that. But he writes historical fiction. But they were talking about the presence of magic in this historical fiction, which his is, I think, it's 14th century.
Okay.
But the people of the 14th century believed in the supernatural,
Yeah. Right.
right?
Yeah.
And so from their perspective, events, things that happen, things they see, the go-to explanation is going to be supernatural.
Right.
It's going to feel like historical fiction leaning into magic and fantasy. And so I'm just, as I'm thinking out loud here, I'm thinking, yeah, there's this sort of this blurring from historical fiction that leans into the perspective of the people of, say, a medieval era, who would be more inclined to believe in the supernatural. And that could easily blur into something like what you're doing, which is fantasy. Definitely, there is magic, there's prophecy, there's that sort of thing, but it is very historical in its inspiration and its influence.
Yeah.
And where's the line, between those things? And then, of course, you have
Right.
just pure
It's a spectrum. It's, where is the line? There isn't one, because it is a spectrum, I guess, is
Yeah,
what I would say.
I agree.
But I have had a couple of readers reach out to me over time and say, are you telling me this that's happening is magic? And I always answer back, no, I am not telling you that. What I wanted to create is a situation where the reader, like the characters, has to decide. My CRS in the Severing Son, somebody asked me if she really did channel a goddess. Is there a divine presence in your world? And I said, well, I think that she thinks that she's channeling a goddess.
Yeah.
You can decide for yourself. Maybe she's just nuts. I mean, so yeah,
but
that's
the type of culture that she's coming from, those people would have believed that, yes, she is channeling a goddess. Yes. Yeah.
So, and I hope that readers enjoy deciding for themselves. And that's the way I wanted to present it. And once I've explained that to the few people who've reached out to me to ask about it, every one of them has said, "Oh, I like that. Okay, that's good." No one has ever said to me, "Well, I wish you made it more specific or clearer,"
Yeah.
So
Cool. Very cool. Well, I think we've done a pretty good job of giving folks a sense of the Sundered Nation trilogy. Everybody, this is the release day. Please congratulate Vaughn on a job well done. We don't know exactly when book 3 is coming out yet, do we? Okay.
No, and it's a lot of it is based on John and the artwork, but I don't want to put pressure on John. If you watch this, take your time.
We want another gorgeous cover. Yes. Yeah.
We want to get everything just right before I even give a date. And the work on the story itself is more or less done. I am going to have it proofread a final time, but other than that,
Wow.
we're ready to go. And hopefully I stick the ending like you did. But you've gone from being a great supporter and a friend to an inspiration as well, because you nailed it. So hopefully, fingers crossed, I can carry it home too. So
yeah, well, I'm so excited for you. This is a really wonderful adventure, this whole writing business. So I'm very excited for you, and I do encourage everyone, if you haven't yet, get your copies of The Severing Son and Bold Ascension, which is out today. Congratulations, my friend, and thank you. Oh, my pleasure. Thank you, everybody, for watching, and until next time.